So for my internship, I worked at an organization called Thread. So I'm honestly gonna skip this introduction because I feel like it's not extremely prevalent. Honestly, it's more for like someone that doesn't know me at all or know like that you need an internship to graduate.
Do it.
Okay, so my name is Carli Tyson, obviously, and I'm a community engagement intern as well as a volunteer for Thread. So it's actually two different positions, but like as I'll explain, I came to find that I had enough time to do both, and that they gave me the tools kind of to do both. So yeah. I honestly did not have any real qualifications for what I wanted to do as an internship besides that I wanted to be paid. And Thread is a paid internship, really handsomely paid, I think, $20 an hour, which I'll get into again later. And kind of just in my introduction, I'm just saying that I felt as though it was like very much meant to be that I was united with Thread because it kind of came together very last minute. And last night, actually, which is why I thought it was a full circle, I went to an event for the woman that hired me, named Shawanda Jackson. Well, it wasn't just for her, it was for all Thread graduates for this past year, but Shawanda is actually an alumni of the program and is now the head of HR. And she hired me, and I actually had no idea that she was so like really embedded into the community, and like, I don't know, it was just kind of cool, full circle type of deal. So the mission statement of Thread is Thread harnesses the power of relationships to create a new social fabric of diverse individuals deeply engaged with young people facing the most significant opportunity and achievement gaps. Our community is committed to ending social isolation and building a more equitable culture in which everyone thrives. So basically, I guess just to make it a little bit more easy to understand, Thread is a program that takes kids starting at the 9th grade, and they are at the bottom 25% of their freshman classes. This is for like a variety of different reasons. It's not always because, I don't know, like the assumed lack of academic, like, I don't know, academic like want or desire. Like it's just more or less because they're 9th graders struggling with problems that most adults haven't even faced. So these range from every really bad problem you can think of that you would have to deal with, socially speaking, these kids kind of have on their plate. So this ranges from homelessness to extreme abuse at home, like of all different kinds. And honestly, the progress that they're able to make with all of the issues that are so prevalently happening in their life each and every day is really astonishing to me. But so pretty much they qualify by having the lowest GPAs in their freshman classes, and they are like figured out or placed through coordinators that are actually at each of the 6 high schools that they work with. And so this is like a more holistic approach than just their grades. Also has to do with the resources that they have that are offered to them outside of the classroom. So some of the cases do have a lot of like assumptions kind of being made, just because there's like a secretiveness, I think, there's a pridefulness that has to be like overcome, I think, on both sides of the spectrum, the people who qualify for Thread, and then also the people who are volunteering and trying to build these relationships, because I saw firsthand last night these kids, a lot of them don't want to be in the program at all. Like they don't want to be in the program, they don't want to see these people, they think they're so nerdy, and honestly some of them are, but they're just trying to help, and there's a disconnect there. But the kids stay in the program for 10 whole years. So Thread very much sees that relationships aren't built in a year. It's not that the trust that's needed to get through to these people it's not gonna happen in a short amount of time at all. It is something that happens gradually. And that is part of the mission of Thread, which I kind of skipped over, but it's all about weaving a social fabric and connecting students, community volunteers, and then other collaborators like Under Armour wouldn't be like a very good one because it's a really large corporation, but something more like a mom and pop store that does little things that collaborates with Thread. A quote that I thought of that kind of summed up to me like what Thread made me think of, I guess, is like the opposite of addiction is connection. So like when someone is an addict, what they need actually isn't necessarily like specific treatments that are going to get them out of their issues. It's going to be actually like having meaningful relationships that make them want to do things in their life to cultivate them and to continue to have them grow and to feel these positive emotions that some of these kids have literally never felt in their life, like ever. And so the history of Thread, it's a completely Baltimore-based organization, which is really cool. And it was started by a woman named Sarah Heminger. And so basically, I never knew this part until I started actually doing research. Sarah, when she was in high school, had a best friend named Ryan, and Ryan's mom got into a car accident and ended up actually becoming paralyzed. And because of that, I guess this was, it doesn't actually matter what the time period was, but more or less she became addicted to opioids and started selling them. And this all kind of came together when Ryan was transitioning into high school. And he almost did not make it past his first semester of freshman year. But this group of teachers, and I think it's in Maryland, I think they're from Maryland, I'm almost positive they're from Maryland, I don't know where though. This group of teachers band together more or less and gave Ryan a support system. And I don't know how many years later, but in 2004, Ryan and Sarah were married, they moved to Baltimore, and yeah, no, right, oh, kind of cute. And Sarah was getting her master's, not even master's, I think her doctorate. She's in like biochemical medical engineering at Johns Hopkins. Like she's a professor there now, full time, but that is where Thread got its base, was at Johns Hopkins and through the undergraduate and then also the medical school. So that's where the partnership between like colleges kind of came from. If it's okay, I'm just gonna play like a minute or a minute and a half of this. It doesn't really matter, I don't really have to. But I will. Cool, okay.
Zoom recording isn't going to pick up on the sound.
That's okay. I mean, hopefully they'll be able to like.
So Thread really is about finding a way to tip Baltimore City. If you think about our city and what has happened throughout the civil rights movement, there was a huge effort to bring about a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable city here in Baltimore. And the challenge is that a lot of those efforts focused on the logos of the movement. And so there was legislation passed, our schools became integrated. The challenge is that even though our schools became integrated, they're actually more segregated now than ever before. They're segregated both by race, but also by class, because what you had was middle class flight out of the city, along with middle class Black flight out of the city. So we now have a school system in Baltimore. If you take Dunbar High School, where Thread is, it's one of our 3 schools. You have a majority African-American student body and a majority of the student body on free and reduced lunch. And so for us, the fundamental question is, how do you actually bring people together across lines of race and class to truly get to know one another so that people will make choices to send their kids to school together? People will make choices to live in neighborhoods together, that we want to influence the decision-making of how people are living their lives. And we think the best way to do that is to form meaningful relationships that transcend these lines. So the way we mobilize.
So that I feel like summed it up pretty well. Oh. Click the back button. Oh, okay. You're right. So I've never met Sarah. I've been to a bunch of events, and honestly, that's the one thing that surprised me, just as a side note, is that she doesn't go to the events. Which could be just because she's super busy and the organization is actually huge and there's so many people underneath her. But yeah, I would say that's one thing about Sarah. Let's go. Okay, so statistics for Baltimore high schools. This is for all Baltimore high schools, but Thread focuses on 6. That video is from 2017 and they only did 3, but since then it's expanded a lot. So just to remember these numbers sort of, if you feel like it. The class of 2021 had 4-year attendance, people that attended for 4 years. The graduation rate was 69.2%. For whatever, I guess it's a little bit less than the class of 2019, but like throughout COVID, that's really not that big of a difference. And each year, the dropout rate since 2019 has gone down, decreased steadily, which is lovely, great to see. I would hypothesize that has to do with thread because the numbers, as I'll show you in 2012 to 2017, are very different, very, very different. So like I said, I explained what qualifies people for thread. Also the language around, the language used in the community, I think is very specific and also very poignant for a reason. So I don't know, they don't usually make people, so that we don't use the word mentor, like that's not a word that's used. This is not like, it's not like a big brother program. It's not like, it's just like honestly offering kids what they should have because they're growing up. Like it's more just giving back what these people had, not necessarily like, it kind of eliminates the savior God complex that I think comes along with helping the youth, like helping any youth, because it's really aiming to understand them and understand their needs. And it's not trying to replace their families either. So just some overview, some obstacles, like Sarah said in the video, Baltimore neighborhoods are dramatically different than they were 6 years ago, but they're also dramatically different because of racial divide and because of gerrymandering and redlining and all the other issues that already existed within the city, aside from education. But the education system is failing the students, has been for decades. But these numbers are pretty shocking. Each student, or allegedly, supposedly, the city spends $16,000 per student, or they're supposed to. Yet has some of the worst performing public schools in the nation. According to the Baltimore Sun, 4th and 8th grade reading, only 13% of city students are considered proficient or advanced. In 4th grade math, 14% were proficient, and in 8th grade math, 11% met the mark according to the National Assessment of Education. This like honest, I forget where I might have just read it, but this puts them at like a refugee level. Like this puts them like so far below what the national like average should be. It's super scary, but the money, they have the money, it's just it doesn't go to where it's supposed to go. And it's really easy because the system that the city operates in already has so much corruption, as we've seen in their presentation. Yeah, it's just like the city already has issues. So this was the numbers that kind of correlated with the other ones, the more previous ones. So it was 2011-2012 year, 41.3% of high school students were chronically absent. And this is out of all Baltimore city schools. So that's pretty much almost 50% of kids that just never show up. And then 5-year high school graduate rate was 71%, which is, it's not great, but it's not as bad as I guess it could be. And dropouts are estimated to earn $260,000 less than someone that graduates over the course of their lifetime. This was in 2007, so I'm sure the number has actually only increased. And a male dropout is over 3 times more likely than a graduate to have committed a crime that has led to his incarceration. So Thread, while it is about helping young people, it very much sees that this is a whole community issue. It's not something that just exists in some sort of microcosm, that the whole community is affected by kids not having education, and that the community is part of the reason why they don't have education. So volunteers that, or the type of volunteer that I guess is being looked for is usually somebody with a very diverse background. Yeah, it has bunches of different types of people of all different walks of life. But Baltimore residents, usually that aren't from here, born and raised, have come to the city for work or to attend a college or another university of some sort of higher education, whether it's the dental school or the medical school, whatever. And so when these students and faculty members don't have strong relationships within more like the extended community outside of maybe their, whatever, the one that they have entered into to get into Baltimore, then they leave and they return to their permanent homes and they don't really help out the city at all. It actually kind of hurts the city because then valuable professional resources aren't there. Like you got your training and then you're dipping, and that really just drains the city monetarily, and also I just think of like spirit and also like hope kind of, because whatever, we'll get into it. So despite the geographical proximity of Baltimore City high schools and like local universities, there wasn't much overlap in their interactions, and their day-to-day lives obviously were completely different. And students at Loyola could never even probably comprehend half of the issues that are going on. Kids in Dunbar High School, that's like not even that far from here. Actually, I don't know how far Dunbar is, but I know Dunbar is like one of the bigger ones. So obstacles for collaborators. So Baltimore employers are projected to experience their greatest hiring demand. So this is older statistics between 2012 and 2020. And many of these jobs will require at least an associate's degree. 1/3 of Baltimore residents, however, have not received a high school diploma. So this combination of low-level education attainment for Baltimore residents, transient university students and faculty populations, and the increasing demand for mid to high skilled workers is poised to create a talent shortage in coming years, which I think is kind of possibly what we could be seeing now. I don't fully know, but yeah. COVID kind of changed a lot of things, obviously, but those are the numbers pre. But the success of the program. So 65% of Thread students with GPAs of less than 1%, so that's, or with less than 1, that's how they usually get into the program to begin with, become 10 times more likely than their peers to graduate when they start out with that degree after they like enter Thread. So prior to that, they have about a 6% chance of graduating with a 1% GPA from high school, but through Thread, in 4 years, it's 65%. And so then in 5 years, it becomes 88%. And after, so then alumni, so alumni usually, they will get a college degree of some sort, but it's usually like a trade program. All the kids that I got to celebrate last night were all going into trade school. One was becoming a welder. One girl was going to cosmetology school, and another girl was doing something not like plumbing exactly, but something, she had to go to trade school for it. It seemed like it took some work. So I don't know. And the model that Thread uses is that they never, so once you get into the program, there's absolutely no way for you to get out of it. Like they will, like you'd have to die before you get out of it. Like they stay on those kids like so hard, because the kids are creative and they like run away and they like say they're gonna be somewhere and then they're not. Like the kids are pretty funny, but it can be very disheartening for the volunteers that are obviously just trying to connect with them and like taking time out of their day to do so. But they do have 100% student retention rate, which I think is something to applaud, because the kids definitely don't make it easy. So now it is 6 high schools. These are the 6 high schools. So Digital Harbor High School, I know, I met a woman who her family member works or goes to school there. I don't know, they said it was a nicer school. I don't really know anything about it, but Frederick Douglass, I know, is the first high school, and then Dunbar High School is one of the largest. And like I said, I met the coordinator last night, and she's in charge of like 94 students, I believe she said. So she's in charge of them, their placements. So each student gets between 2 and 4 people assigned to them for their first 5 years. And then as they enter into the 6-7 year program, like stage and whatnot, the amount of people needed decreases, just because their needs decrease. But yeah, they also are trying, they partner with other schools. These are just the ones that have large population that come out of it, and they have actual coordinators in the schools to make sure that their relationships between the volunteers and the kids stay sympathetic, I don't know, like together. But if there are kids in a specific school or like a charter school that need assistance, that they've been known to do that with multiple other schools. And they even have people that they work with like in other cities. I believe they have a couple people in Philadelphia, and they're looking to expand for sure into other cities. So yes, the core values, I just put these in here because I thought they were really different. And when I was reading them over, I like reflected on moments in my own experience working with them where they've been like, I don't know, they've had meaning. So show all the way up, I guess that one's kind of universal, more or less, that showing up and being present is important. But the one that I really want to highlight is failing forward. So like Thread knows it's going to be very awkward for these interactions, these relationships, like these people that they're matching together have like pretty much nothing in common, but just the ability to put yourself out there, even if it's not with the kids, if it's just like at the events where you're meeting people. Like last night I sat with 5 people I've never met before, like at all. Not all. The one woman I met her like, 40 minutes apart because she face planted in front of me. So I'm sure she felt super awkward too. Yeah, like literally face planted on the ground in the concrete. I was like, but I don't know, everyone kind of just shakes it off. Everyone is just willing to like work past that awkwardness and not let that deter the whole social like setting or scene. I don't know, it's very unique and it feels kind of funny, but I don't know, it's worth pushing past because then you do eventually find your common ground and then that connection is like forged in its own small way and then it can build. Treat relationships as wealth. I also really like that one, and learning from all voices. Treat relationships as wealth is something that's very much a part of my day-to-day and also my job. It's a lot about cultivating relationships, whether it's between people at Loyola and Thread, or if it's like people at the Greek stand and Thread, because they didn't work with them before they went to our campus and Johns Hopkins campus. So like it's small things, but treating all relationships and all people like they add value and that they can bring value to your life is something that Thread practices and preaches, obviously. So I didn't know this all the time until I started doing some research and asking my supervisor, but Thread is actually an agile workplace, which I never really heard of prior to working for them. But more or less, it just means that it's an extremely flexible place to work that tries to integrate technology as well as human connection. So like pretty much working from Zoom is already on par with their agile workplace. Like they already had that training and they were already doing stuff with that. And then like another example is, I guess I did write this. But one of the women I was talking to and sitting with last night, I didn't realize I thought she was honestly a volunteer. The event I was at last night was a lot of volunteers, not a lot of like the actual employees usually go, but I'm on the resource team, so it's important to go to the events for volunteers. But she was telling me that a couple of years back, maybe 2018 or 2017, I guess it was whenever there had to have been a change in minimum wage, but the higher ups, I guess, did an equity and inclusion, it's not survey, but they had someone come in and I guess survey their company for where they needed to improve and where they needed to be providing more equity and more resources for their employees. And so it came back that they were actually underpaying a lot of their staff and that they were not on par with like what the salaries should be currently. So within like a month and a half, they created a whole new budget and implemented it right away. And the woman said that between like, she is higher up, and this transparency was lovely, but between like bonuses and then just her base salary, it increased like $15,000. So I don't know, I really care. I get paid $20 an hour, but that's the lowest starting rate. Like that is the lowest they go is $20 an hour. The woman, we were having a conversation just about money last night because this woman worked at other nonprofits in Seattle, decided one day after living in Seoul that she wanted to move to Baltimore. I don't know why. So she moved back home to Seattle, decided she wanted to come to Baltimore, never been to Baltimore, and got another job at a different nonprofit. And they more or less like, not that they didn't pay her, but they kind of like, I guess it's common that like stipends are given out and like it's more, I don't know how exactly, I don't want to tell the story wrong, but like they weren't really giving her the things that she needed to do her job well. And pretty much she was like, Thread allows me to pay my bills and then I can help other people because I'm not worrying about anything. And I was like, and I wrote kind of like that in one of my papers. So I don't know, they definitely practice what they preach, and they definitely value work-life balance. Like a lot of the people last night that went to the event, it ran kind of late, so they didn't have to come into work today till 12. Like it didn't even run that late, like it only ran to like 8:30, but still like it took out of there, so then it's like fair for it to then, I don't know, it's also a lot of trust. I feel like in the agile workplace, they operate from a place of already trusting their employees and not necessarily doubting them, and I don't think that that's always common. So where do I play a part? So yeah, my official job title is Community Engagement Leader Intern. I work with a resource and innovation team, and it's made up of 5 people, including myself. But mainly it's just about recruiting new volunteers, mainly from college campuses. That's the one that I work for, but also small businesses too. That blurb is just from the job description. Yeah, I do a lot of talking. I go to a lot of interesting events. So like over the past couple months, I went to a health convention, a healthcare convention. It was like health in Baltimore and how more or less it can be improved and like where it can be improved. And like went around to all the stands and gathered up information and kind of networked. I also did another one for food scarcity, and then like all those connections that I make like while explaining to people what Thread is and what it does and how they could fit into that puzzle, then get passed on, and then those points of contact become actual points of contact for the organization. At Loyola, I organized with my like teammate, kind of, her name is Melinda, a lunch and learn event, which wasn't that successful, but that was honestly because I've come to find out that working with universities is it's not so easy. It's not so cut and dry, not even this university. And you would think because we go to a Jesuit school that this should fall right in line with their mission, but I don't know, they were kind of giving me a hard time. Nonetheless, hopefully next year it'll be easier, and like that was just a trial run. But then we also had 3 tabling events, which was kind of just like set up over there, and those are decently successful. I think there was about 55 people that signed up. If even like 10 of them become volunteers, that would be pretty good. But yeah, day-to-day activities. So I also work from Monday. I work on Monday and Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 2, and each day looks completely different, but starts off the same way. So on Mondays, it's an hour. It's an hour meeting at like 9:30, I believe, with my supervisor, Maria. But Maria is not like the boss, which I didn't, took me a second to realize that actually Brittany's the boss. But Maria is my direct supervisor, and Maria has like other teams she's a part of. And then Melinda is my partner, and we work on like the west side. And then Brittany and Mel work on the east side. But yeah, I don't really know the division. Like we talked about that, it confuses me still because the more they try and explain it, the more complicated it gets. But pretty much it's just like working on separate lists of people who help on either side of the city to make the program more successful. So I do things like go to info sessions and like troubleshoot and see if there's issues or if people have like, I don't know, specific questions. I only do that sometimes because they're usually not really worth it. I make a lot of phone calls to people. I make a lot of phone calls to like former volunteers or former interns that just wondering where they are or like how they're doing or like what if they would be interested in coming back, how to best reach students. So like for Loyola specifically, we really wanted to do an event with puppies. Like we thought that would get so many people and even like pictures. Like people love animals so much. They love animals. They go crazy for that. And like specific food places that I thought would be great. Loyola actually wouldn't allow any of that because they, I don't really know, have their own agenda. But so that kind of was something I was really working or putting a lot of effort and time towards. Kind of didn't pan out how I wanted it to, but it's okay. Because besides that, I think of other opportunities for them, or I try to, and they like love it. I like love all of the women I work with. They're super nice. So like I'll answer their emails. And I'll just do like anything that they need to do their stuff easier, like whatever that is. And yeah, like I go to events for Threads. So the quad ceremony is what I went to last night. And it's like a ceremony to honor all of the high school graduates entering into the after high school program. And so each of their like family members thinks of a word, an adjective that is very special to that specific person, and they write up a whole blurb, and they're actually so beautiful. I wish I took a picture. And it's like frames of usually kid and their people that they like, or just of the kid and their family, because like that's the thing, like these children do have families. What their relationship with them is not like Thread really their business. So like they're more than welcome, like a lot of their families came too, and stuff, which was nice. Cause it kind of just is more holistic, I think, than like a girls and boys club. Like it's much more like realizing that people have families and that there's other things at play that like can affect people's perspective and how they see other, or how they like trust people. I don't know. But I'm an intern. I'm gonna not be an intern anymore, but I'm gonna continue to be a volunteer and do kind of the same stuff I did as an intern over the summer, just because I really like working for them. And I really just think it's a great organization. So sociological connections, I would say that we could kind of all, like, I'm obviously white. I grew up in like a pretty well-off area, like my race has never been a problem for me, but it doesn't mean like this is what I thought of. So the first thing we had to read for legal was The Fire Next Time. Like that was a pretty powerful book, pretty moving book. I don't know. I had read other books, like I guess of similar genres, but that one, I don't know, that one really hit home. I don't know if anyone else remembers that, but I was thinking about that today and I was like, oh wow. I guess that's kind of where it all started. And then we also live in Baltimore. Like, Baltimore is an extremely racially charged city. Like that was not something I was not aware of. It's just not something that I was directly a part of, I guess, until kind of now, but not even. So through course readings, like I began to understand other things, and like I looked at studies like the racial formation theory and like double consciousness through boys, and I read The Souls of Black Folk, I think twice. I think we read it for theory, and then I also read it for another class, English. Oh, so I read it for 3 classes actually. Like I've done projects on like prison, like more or less all of this is just pretty much saying that like I've tried academically to understand racism as best as possible, but because I can't understand, like I don't experience it, like I genuinely don't think sociologically speaking, unless you are really a part of these people's lives, like I always felt perturbed and had some sort of connection to it, just because I think, I don't know, I genuinely care about people. But until like I actually heard like what these kids, like what the teachers say to these kids, like I don't know, like I have chills just like thinking about it. Like it is so mean. Like if I was in high school and I had to hear that, like one girl yesterday was telling me that she got her report card back, and the teacher was like, well, maybe if she knew how to shut up, she would get a little farther in life. And like, maybe if she stopped caring about like how short her skirt was. It was so weird, but like, that's kind of the attitude that a lot of these teachers go into these schools with. Like, they're not there to like get to understand these kids. They're there to like do a job and get out. And I don't think like any sociological study captures that really. And I think the only way to actually, without actually experiencing it, is to hear these people's first-hand accounts. So then when I was doing research for my paper, I came across a couple studies about racial inequality and how it actually affects well-beings. So in the studies from Rhodes and Geist, it's from 2012, so it's a bit old, but like not that old. And it's a holistic approach. So it's looking at like not just well-being in the sense of like they have a roof over their head, but like well-being is like emotional well-being. So the primary objective to examine trends in the US well-being inequality with an emphasis on change in racial composition. So across the groups, it was estimated that Black well-being averages around 76%, when compared to whites, while every other race is approximately 93%. Not only did the study conclude that whites had the greater average household income, but also the greatest levels of education and health scores. And Black individuals consistently scored the lowest in all these categories. And it's just Baltimore, this study particularly is applicable because Baltimore is, like, most of the schools are more than 70% African American, like but their teachers half the time are not at all, and they're not trying to see that difference or acknowledge that difference. And I think that's part of the problem. So personal growth, yeah, I've loved working at Thread. Like I've loved working at Thread. Like I highly recommend if you're staying in Baltimore just to like go to one event. Like they're really moving, and I don't know if I could even like, they make you actually really feel something. And as someone that doesn't really like to do that often, actually like feeling stuff in like a nice way, each and every day, and like actually feeling like what I was doing was really helping people, and that like what this organization says they're doing, they actually do. I don't know, it made me gain a lot of different things. Empathy, wholeness, human connection, compassion, self-awareness. Self-awareness, I think, is really important, are just some of the aspects I think that I've improved upon personally while working at Thread. And yeah, I hope to remain a part of their community pretty much forever. So yeah, I think you should tell all of the next people that this is like one of the best places to live, or not live, to work, because they have a really good program for interns already in place. Like they don't have like those, I don't know, growing pains that maybe some of the other internships had, because they really are, they're all about getting those young people in the door just to, I don't know, have them feel, I think, kind of some of the same things that I felt, because I don't think that you really have to be sold on it. I think it's kind of just something that once you get in the door, it's like, oh, I want to be a part of this. So yeah, that's that on that. That's it.
Thank you.